Loneliness can be as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Now, that's a fact coming from the US Surgeon General's 2023 advisory based on decades of studies. So people with weak social ties have up to a 32% higher risk of early death. And lonely doesn't just mean being alone, it means lacking meaningful connection, to a group, society, person. That's 15 cigarettes a day.
This episode is general information only. Full disclaimers in the notes.
Hey, welcome back. G'day, Josh. How are you going?
Good, mate. How are you?
Good, good. Welcome back to the Steak Dinner podcast, everyone. The show for men in midlife who want to get sharper, stronger, and better connected. We cut through the noise with straight talk, solid research, and practical steps on health, money, and mateship. Everything you need to reset, rebuild, and get more out of life.
That's a large mission statement right there, but we might cut it back in future episodes.
Well, yeah, or start listening in 1.5 times speed or something, people.
I think this sounds beautiful at 1.2, to be honest.
I'm a double.
Yeah, but you're a double. That's a little bit out of control.
Get a little bit close. Mate, just a quick recap.
Mm.
In episode 9, we tackled the physical reset, fuel, movement, daily habits. And in episode 10, we exposed the silent killers for sleep and the skipped checkups. We had a few things you needed to do this week. And today we're going to close the trilogy out. So this one's probably the hardest reset, the mental game, because if your head's not right, you really can't do anything else. It won't stick. So we need to talk about this stuff, mate, because silence is killing blokes. Do you want to go just on that recap? Do you want to just give some feedback as to what the listeners have come back on?
Yeah,
YouTube
sure.
and
We've had
Spotify.
Definitely. Well, we covered off a fair bit last week. We spoke about the 3-2-1 rule, which was around not eating 3 hours before bed, 2 hours ditching fluids, and 1 hour before bed getting off the blue light. A lot of people that seemed to strike a chord. People could relate to that, so that was pretty well received. We did get some people commenting around our desire to tackle perimenopause. So that was as you would expect it to be, Kieran. Very interesting feedback there. So one of our listeners commented that, certainly love to hear about how women's health and women's issues affect men. Men was in caps lock, by the way, just to kind of give you a sense of where that
Was
message
there an emoji with it?
There was, I don't know if it was the devil emoji or the eggplant emoji. I'm not too sure, but there was something going on there.
So number one, you don't know if it was a man or woman who wrote that one.
Well, it was
two.
The profile picture seemed androgynous to me. So who knows?
Well,
it could have been you. It could have been you, Kieran. I know you've got many social media accounts.
I might start getting onto there and just posting some message.
And a couple of other areas was around the testosterone that drives a lot of discussion and debate around, do you need it? Don't you need it? So look, we're really appreciating the feedback, people taking the time to provide their comments and feedback and engage in the discussion. I mean, for that particular gentleman, they were talking about the need for men to really do as much as they can with their diet, with their exercise, and a lot of those controllables, as we've talked about before. And if you do a lot of those things, you can actually raise your testosterone levels naturally, which is a great thing. I think it's good to really exhaust all those avenues before you start bringing in medical interventions. So that was a really good pickup there. And I think maybe you just want to run us through the feedback we got around depression, which is really pretty pertinent for this episode.
Yeah, there was one which was, and it was well written, really, from what we sort of touched on last week was, and I might just quote it, there is a big difference between what most people refer to as depression and the crippling nightmare of clinical depression. Feeling low and worthless and seeing no future is one thing. Feeling nothing at all is quite another. They also wrote, there is a myth, and I think to an extent that we are perpetuating it, that men don't talk. But men do talk. And this particular commenter said, look, they were very, very lucky to have a couple of mates that they can talk to about things. And because of that, he also said that that's great to be able to, that he feels that if he has it, someone else has that as well. And I guess as a comment, number one, that's great that you've got it. Number two, thanks for commenting. Number three, we hope that every bloke does have it. And I guess Josh's facts, either that's a myth or one of the studies and surveys is the myth. I feel like I've got, 10 blokes I could call immediately. Now, that doesn't mean people who are like that don't commit suicide or attempt suicide or things like that. So thank you so much for that comment.
I think it's
a broader.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think there's a lot of stats to back up where men are at, and the stats don't lie. Suicide rates are 3-1, particularly in the age group. So there's certainly a lot going on. And I agree, if you've got mates to talk to, you're lucky. It's a privilege. Not everyone has mates to talk to. It's really if you do have that, appreciate it and nurture it. But it's not everyone's case, certainly. And I think for guys as well, yes, they do talk, but are they talking about the right things? Guys like to do a lot of trivial banter, and they do talk and they go down the pubs and things like that. So just making sure that you're finding that right person who you can engage in some of the more personal topics of what's going on in your world.
There's not many people you bare your soul to. And now we'll just give you a little bit of the menu. This one I think is incredible. Loneliness can be as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Now, that's a facts coming from the US Surgeon General's 2023 advisory based on decades of studies. So people with weak social ties have up to a 32% higher risk of early death. And lonely doesn't just mean being alone. It means lacking meaningful connection, to a group, society, person, etc. That's 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow. It goes to show you that, and a lot of people don't correlate it, just what the brain can do to the body and what the emotions can do to the body in terms of impacts and stuff like that. And when you're feeling all that loneliness, and it's a perpetual cycle of almost internal grief and stress. And I'm sure those people that are lonely, they're not probably eating well. They're probably hitting up the vices, I would think, and probably their sleep hygiene's out. So there must be a whole raft of other things going on that sort of tie into that. Lonely people tend to do this, and it's having sort of a material impact. But we are social creatures, aren't we, at the end of the day? But it's a good distinguishment that you had between being lonely and being alone, because they are separate things. I lived alone for 5 years, and I really enjoyed living alone. It was a nice break for me, but I had a lot of social connection around me. I just happened to live alone. But yeah, I mean, some people can live in households full of people and still feel lonely.
Of course, yeah.
If
with people that love them.
Yeah, exactly. If
Yeah.
they don't feel the relationships are where they, in their mind, they think they should be, then that's going to be problematic.
Or they don't prioritize that piece, or they can't see that love that's from the family.
Yes, because it is expressed in different ways for different people. That's an interesting point that you raised, because what people define as, what does love look like for different people? And it's a complicated question, and it's very different for different people, isn't it? In terms of what fills your love cup, and depending upon your personality, depending upon your gender and things like that, different people feel expressions of love in different ways, whether it be acts of service or intimacy or whatever the case may be. I know for you, it's about getting your leaky roof done. Acts of service, I think, for you.
Getting the gardens done, getting the hedges.
Getting the hedges done.
Yeah.
Some guys, cook a meal for them, and that's it. Their love cup is full.
Hey, just on that 15 cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
Being deadly, or loneliness being deadly. I remember seeing, I think it might have been on Netflix or one of those, about is it the Blue Zone?
Yes, the Blue Zone diets. Yes.
Blue Zone diet. But part of it was they went to a few countries around the world where people live to 100, and the social networks that they have, for number one, they walk, but they go to, dances and like as old people, catch up on a Thursday and do a bit of a shuffle dance and listen to music and, have these meetings every day and just catch up or cooking together and things like that. So that loneliness being deadly, it's not just from the US study, it's also around the world. It seems to be proving, being with people, having relationships is something that will give you a long life.
Yes. And I think quality relationships give you a sense of purpose, something to get up for, something to invest in. I really think purpose is, have a look at retirement, Kieran. How many people, and I've seen them personally, people that retire and I see them go downhill within a couple of years because they lose their purpose and they don't realize it and they didn't prepare for that transition of life and waking up and having something to do and a reason to wake up other than collecting a pension check, I think is critical, particularly as you're older.
Yeah. Hey, another hook for you, a bit on the menu. 1 in 8 Aussie men experience depression each year. Well, I think we talked about that last week. So Beyond Blue reports this through the National Mental Health Surveys, and this is clinical depression, not just having a rough week, which was something that the commenter said earlier, but 1 in 8.
1 in 8. And, we spoke about this last week that, year on year, there's a good chance that over your lifetime, you're going to be one of those people. Statistically at some point. And that makes sense. I mean, life can deal you some pretty heavy blows through the decades, can't it? Through marital issues, through deaths in the family, through challenging relationships with your kids, through employment challenges where you've got a boss that's perpetually riding your tail or you just don't enjoy coming to work and you've got 40 hours in a concrete prison. All those things can really be detrimental over time.
Last one, mate. The last hook, and then we can get into the main course. Suicide is the leading cause of death for Aussie men aged 15 to 44. That's self-harm takes more young men than car accidents or cancer.
It's crazy.
Now, when we saw that, and both of us have had exposure to it, we then thought, well, what's happened over the decades, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 20, this isn't, people 15 to 44s have been dying, as all age groups do. So JP, you pulled up a couple of things on that, which I thought was important. So if we say right now, 15 to 44, suicide is the leading cause of death for Aussie men, 15 to 44. Right?
Yes.
JP, what about in prior years? Because I was thinking, what happens during the 90s depression era, right? What would it have been then?
Well, in these dominant causes for men's death between that age group or that cohort, infectious disease, so pneumonia, influenza, respiratory illnesses, accidents and injuries were a big thing back then. Not a lot of going around in the 30s, Kieran.
No,
I don't think so.
Get the
or
work.
the 40s. Same thing. A lot of workplace
and nutrition
accidents.
was low. Nutrition would have been low because of all of those respiratory things.
And a lot of infectious diseases, which we've been able to kind of get a hold of, that was still very prevalent in the 30s and 40s. They started to decline coming into the 50s. But certainly, accidents, road accidents, things like that.
That would have been 40. The 40s would have been war and
exactly.
malnutrition.
And then as we get into like the 60s and 70s, then we start to get some of those circulatory diseases, heart diseases, cancers. Still some stuff around, external causes and injuries and things like that.
So we're making progress on death.
Yeah.
Then cars and things like that.
Correct.
Safer. Yep.
As we go into the 80s and 90s, the heart disease cancer is becoming more prominent. I think a lot of that was, just our food system and self-induced preventable diseases, but certainly a rise.
People would have been smoking the 15 cigarettes a day then.
Yeah.
80s.
Yes, 100%. And I think diet as well. and as we sort of get into the 80s and stuff, suicide starts to kind of get up there again. Suicide, accidents.
So that all makes sense. So we're back there. So we've made all these great improvements on everything else in the Western world, let's say, and now we got to do something about this again.
Yes.
We need to do something about suicide, and so let's get everyone's mental health strong. So you've got a couple of things to talk about today for mental health and stress and burnout. So, mate, we've all been there, I guess, but to a degree. But it's how you handle that stress. What do we got?
Well, if we look at stress and burnout, particularly if you look at the workplace, as an example, 1 in 5 Aussie men say that workplace stress harms their health, and chronic stress raises cortisol. It's linked to a lot of health complaints and belly fat and blood pressure and metabolic syndrome as well. You've been a business owner and you've managed a number of employees over the years. What's your take on workplace stress, I guess, as a business owner, and I guess what you've seen managing cohorts of staff?
I've found like my businesses have always been relatively small, right? I'm a small business owner, medium size. So for me, the stress was always making a sale and bringing in enough revenue to make sure that people were paid, right? To me, payday was always the most stressful, and unfortunately the people that we were doing work for and selling to, cash flow was always a stress for them too. So for them to pay us. So that was something, but I think over time I just either blocked it or maybe funneled it into something else. I'm not too sure, but maybe have a de-stress sort of process once a week with alcohol or something, probably during the tough times, maybe more. So I'd say that was my experience. I don't seem to feel that now, but definitely as a young father with kids and mortgages and plus the work. Whereas when you're an employee in a large organization, JP, which is what you were, I guess it's just a different stress. Whereas I felt like I had, thousands of clients. They all felt like they were my boss. You had 1 or 2 or 3 that would be downward pressure or focused on you, right? So
100%. And from what I've experienced myself and in corporate, it's and I certainly this would extend to other non-corporate entities as well. I think a lot of it comes back to the culture of the organization and the direct relationship you have with your boss. There's an old saying that people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I think a lot of people stay in jobs they're probably overqualified for and not getting the compensation that they may be able to get externally out in the market if they really wanted to have a crack at it. But they stay there because it's like, well, I like the people at this place. My boss is cool. He gives me autonomy. He doesn't micromanage me. So all those things, but if you're on the opposite end of that, if you're being micromanaged, for example, I'm a guy that I can't deal with that. I can't deal with micromanagement. Okay. It's just not in my personality. I know there's a lot of other people like that as well, or just they feel that their boss is unreasonable. They're not respecting their boundaries. They're not respecting their role. And I think sometimes it's just personality clashes. This can all, and when you're trying to pay bills and you've got kids and you need an income and it's a tough market, you do sometimes feel like you're trapped in this corporate prison that you can't escape, and you are stuck there day in, day out, like Groundhog Day, 5 days a week, having to stare at your boss for 8 hours a day, who you probably got a voodoo doll of at home. So, for some people, you could imagine that chronic stress and how that would lead to, a fairly depressed state over a period of time.
Yeah. I'm just also thinking that, I used to work weekends when I had young kids, as to make sure I delivered for the our business was selling. And I remember having a chat to an employee who left. She was a great employee. And I asked her about 10 years later, why did you end up leaving our firm at the time? And she said, you know what? One day I was doing work, sitting at the desk, and there was a fair amount of stress. We were always to deadlines, and she'd taken up a senior role and said, I looked at it and went like that, or something like that to her face. And she goes, and I realized that's what you do. That's what I do. And so she said, this is obviously getting to a stress level beyond what is required for a normal operating business. And she said, so I made the decision. And she goes, I love working here and there, with
Yeah.
you and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very great person, great operator. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I've seen that face rub myself, mate. So I've seen it. I've seen it quite a few
you've seen the
times.
eyeballs go.
I've seen lots of different things from you, Kieran, to be honest with you, but most I'd prefer not to talk about on the airwaves, that's for sure. But no, we've all got our little quirks, and it's good that, it's good when you do realize it, that you're self-aware enough to realize it. Certainly, it's good if you've got the privilege to be able to do something about it. And then some people, it's not that easy. They can't just leave places and things like that. So it's more a case of, how do I make the best of this situation given the circumstances? I can't change the circumstances, but I can maybe change my attitude. Maybe I can do some more relaxation stuff to balance it out, change my perspective a bit like that, just to make things a little bit easier to tolerate the particular situation that you're in.
Yeah. So first off, I guess you've got to recognize the signals that you're in a state of stress. So
yes, they will appear as not just a mental, but you'll start seeing things like your blood pressure, your blood sugar, all those things will, generally when people are going through depression, there's a lot of other health markers that are probably going to be off at that point as well. So maybe something to consider is getting down to your local health professional if you are feeling stressed, and just making sure that there isn't anything medically going on that's contributing to your stress as well. Just making sure that those things are covered off, because if there's something inherently wrong with your health, then no amount of meditation or job changes is going to resolve that. So
you said something to me about the waist circumference, the belly fat.
Yeah.
Going on.
Yeah, the visceral fat. Yeah.
Visceral fat. Yeah. So, yeah, like we said last week, I don't usually measure things from a weight perspective or any of those things. But it'd be interesting, because I reckon you could probably take photos of yourself, look at photos of yourself over the last 20 years and say, oh, yeah, there's a stressful point. There's a stressful point. There's a stressful point.
Yes. And for some people, it'd be different. Some people are probably going to see skeletons. Some people just turn off food. Some people, I like food. When I'm stressed, I go to food as a comfort. I know that in myself,
Yeah.
It's just putting some boundaries around letting yourself go, I guess, and just having I think boundaries are important.
All right. So what have we got, JP? What are the tools that we need? What
tools have we got? So I guess a couple of things. We want to recognize the signals first. If you're having gut issues, insomnia, irritability, these are all probably cries for help from your body to go and get some help. Recognizing that not all stress is terrible. There's the good versus the toxic stress, and short bursts of stress are good for the body. We need that. It gives us the motivation to complete tasks and get stuff done. So, and then look at some practical tools. Have you ever heard of box breathing?
No.
Box breathing, it's a Navy SEAL technique that they use to get themselves, I guess, into a state of emotional regulation and to calm their body during stressful situations. So it's essentially, and people can look it up. I might throw a link in the show notes to.
Can you just breathe for us and show us how it's done?
Well, it's essentially you're breathing in for 4 seconds. So it's right for 4 seconds. Then you're
through your nose.
Through your nose, and then you're going to do everything through the nose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you're going to hold that breath for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're going to slowly release that breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to hold and pause for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to continue that cycle. Do that for 5 minutes and then ratchet it up. Do you have anything that you do to manage your stress levels on a personal front? Do you have any strategies in your own toolkit that you use if you're getting a bit? I know you mentioned last week about going bright red and blood pressure going through the roof, but is there anything?
It was the opposite, JP.
Was it?
Yeah. The face going red just happens under.
Yeah, of course it does.
But what I like to do, and I feel in a better state with, is swim or surf. Definitely, first thing in the morning. I used to, my favorite. Walking the dog in the morning was one of my favorite things to do. Dog's dead now.
Poor Ricky
B. But and the other one I do when I get back, I don't know, this just really helps me. I usually, because I've got up early anyway, I'll usually read a Stoics book or a couple of pages.
Yes.
And I'd also have a journal book where I would write down things I was thinking about, like things I wanted to get done, or things that I don't need to get done today or this week, or things that were there from the last week, and then resorting it, and effectively just in a notepad. And sometimes writing down the quotes that were in the Stoics one. What was it one? Daily Stoic.
Oh, the Daily Stoic.
That's holiday. And so, sometimes I'll read one or two, write all over it. And I don't know, that just seems to be something that, puts me at ease, because then I think it's a big picture type scenario these guys were writing about. And the value system is very similar. A bit different to obviously what they were thinking and what they went through, but it's amazing how many of the things they wrote about cross over. So that's like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and a few like that. And honestly, it's not much, but I know I've sent that book. I bought a few of them and gave them out to different people, and every single bloke who I gave that to has come back to me later and said that it was great for them.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you see it, everyone, you can probably just do it online for free. I'm not saying buy that guy's book, but
no, that's an example. It just draws a lot of the Stoic philosophy and sort of puts it into daily quotes and things like that. But, there's other Stoic texts that you can read, which is pretty much where all the information's drawn from anyway.
Well, they're free apps too.
There's free Stoic apps with free Stoic quotes and things like that. I think to what you were saying, we're in such a distracted society at the moment because there's so much stimulation coming to us from all angles as soon as we get up. And I think having that time to sort of step away from that and going into your Stoic philosophy is really kind of pushing all of that away, going back to the most basic of basic ways to conduct yourself and live your life. And it can kind of recenter your purpose for your day as well, to say, hang on, let's not get all distracted by all this other nonsense and let's focus on what really matters here.
You would have probably read Meditations, would you?
Yeah, Marcus Aurelius.
I started it, but I couldn't really get into it, whereas
it does get...
It's an extract of a quote sort of a thing, as it's done in that Daily Stoic, that becomes an easier...
There are themes to these Stoic philosophies, and there's repetitive themes that seem to come through. There's a real sort of central philosophy that exists through, I think, most of the Stoic philosophers, around that sort of sphere of control and all those types of things, and to your controlling those controllables and things like that. So I think that's really important, just having, especially that one, mastering that one has been a big one for me, just that sphere of control. And just really, when a problem comes to you, recognizing what part of that problem solving is applicable to me. For example, with any problem, it could be financial problem. What happens if the markets go down 35%? I can't control that, right? That's a very real example from you last year, but what can I control in all of that?
Yeah.
What can I do? I can't control that. So there's no point in worrying about the markets going down, but what can I control? I can control whether or not I sell that investment. I control what I invest in for the future. Do you know what I mean? There's all these things that are in my mechanism of control. And I think
you can only control your choices. You can only control your mind. You actually can't control your body, right? Like you can get disease tomorrow. Despite everything we're talking about, we're trying to minimize that. But realistically, you can't control.
I think you could. I think we could. Maybe I'd reframe that a little bit. You can control like your body in that I can control putting my body through certain rigorous exercises, for example. What I can't control is what net impact that's going to have on me. So what I'm saying by that is I can't control if I'm going to get heart disease, but I can control that I do cardiovascular exercise every day for 45 minutes a day that I know statistically will de-risk me. No, it's not going to. I'm not going to worry about getting heart disease because that's out of my control.
Yeah.
But I certainly can control about, are you going to turn up to the gym today? That's within my sphere of control.
Well, and that's a choice.
That's a choice.
Back to what I said. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the choice. You can only really control your choices.
Your choices, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
So we're both saying the same thing.
We're saying the same thing. Yeah. I feel like I'm talking to my wife now.
Is she a big Marcus Aurelius fan?
No, we just misunderstand each other all the time. All the time. Sometimes we get into arguments, and by the end of it, it's like, I think we're talking about the same thing here.
I think we're both agreeing.
I think we're both agreeing.
Actually, so my mornings set up really good. And from a stress perspective, reset, very good. But when I was younger, when I had, you'd probably self-medicate on alcohol. I know we've talked about it before, but that seemed to be the de-stress when you've got young kids. For the girls, maybe it's a glass of wine and with the bath time and book or whatever with the kids. But for the bloke, having a couple of reds, which, I've
strategically used alcohol in my life 1000%. I know this. And an example of that was when I had my youngest son. He went through a stage, it's called purple crying. And I don't know if you've heard of purple crying, but it's essentially, it goes on for weeks, Kieran, and it goes on every night. And they just go through this hysterical crying. Okay. And there's nothing you can do about it. And they go purple in the face. They're screaming, not your normal screaming, but those almost blood-curdling screams that kids make when they're in high distress? It was like that. So as a parent, you're thinking, holy shit, like this is visceral and this is hard to take. So my wife and I, we would pour 2 glasses of champagne, and then we would just handball our son back and forth to each other and have a glass of champagne, because it's like, we can't do anything about this other than comfort this child. So I'm going to do that over a glass of champagne, because I don't know if I want to be 100% present. You know what I'm saying? I think I need something to take the edge off, whether that be right or wrong. I'm just sharing an experience of sort of how I strategically used alcohol, I guess, just to kind of take the edge off a particular situation, whether that be right or wrong. I don't know. It helped us to get through that particular situation, but I also understand it doesn't help everybody.
Yeah, well, there's probably other options. Glad to hear any others that anyone else has out there that can help everyone else, but probably log off your work, from 8 o'clock and try to protect your weekends. That's probably something I'd recommend.
I think that goes into the boundaries conversation, doesn't it, Kieran?
Yeah.
Creating boundaries, whether it be with your workplace, with your friends, all that kind of stuff.
And I'm not talking about Saturday work where you're trying to get ahead in life and blah, 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 as a young bloke, and you want to go to work because it's time and a half, etc. But this is more like you've got paid it as a salary. Shouldn't be that Saturday.
Yes.
and
Yes.
consistently. Sometimes that's fair.
Yeah, sometimes the work's on, the work's on. It's just, I
Yeah.
think it's about those consistent patterns of infringing on people's personal boundaries that people
Yeah.
need to be worried about.
So we've got our calls to action.
Yes. So, a couple of cool resources. Beyond Blue have got a stress toolkit, which I would implore people to take a look at. Black Dog Institute's got some cool fact sheets around burnout. There's a couple of good books there. One's called Burnout by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. So that's about strategies for closing the stress loop and a lot of the stuff that we talk about, exercise, breath work, positive connections, all that kind of stuff. There's a smart... Yes, exactly. There's an app, Smiling Mind. That's a free Aussie meditation app people might want to consider.
Is that yours? Do you have to declare that in the show notes or something? No.
There is some in-app purchases there, Kieran. I'm not going to lie. Monthly subscription's $49 a month.
Are you getting a referral fee?
Get a referral fee. Why not? It's either that or you can just jump on and buy AG1 through this
I can't wait till AG1 sponsors us.
Yeah, 100%.
Come on.
No, I think
into us.
I think Andrew Huberman's got that contract locked right down. So yeah,
the one that I looked at was Stoic Mind.
Stoic Mind.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
And just every day it changes as a
widget,
as a quote for the day.
Yes,
and then you can sort of heart ones that you like or whatever. And here you go. Poverty is a virtue which one can teach oneself. And then it's got this other thing, which is a life calendar and shows you dots of how much of life you've already used and how much you've got to go.
Wow,
to use what you have.
Yes.
So
yes,
do good, do virtue, service. And
it's disturbing, but a good wake-up call for a lot of people, for sure.
Yeah.
Mateship and connection. Any interesting stats around mateship?
Well, they're similar to the ones we talked about before, but like Movember put out a stat, say only 1 in 4 Aussie men say they can confide in a mate. And I think that we can definitely talk. Mates can talk. Laying your soul bare, admitting your mistakes that you're not proud of. It's a hard thing. And you probably don't do that to everybody.
Yes, it's just being able to share your whole self, not just the good stuff, but share the stuff that's all those challenges in life.
So 25%, Josh, there say that they...
Yeah.
Oh, 75% can't confide in a mate. That's the real stat. Turn it around, 1 in 4 can confide in a mate.
Yeah.
75% of males can't.
Yes.
The other one is... men with strong social ties live 5 to 7 years longer. And that's Harvard. And they've been doing that study since 1938.
Wow. So they've got
probably alumni coming back together or something.
Yes, to have data that are all saying the same thing, which is, when you think about 5 to 7 years, just through social connections, it's a lot. So definitely something that people need to be mindful of.
How often do you call a mate a week or something, JP?
Try, and I'm not always successful, but I try to make a point of regularly telling myself to get in contact with at least a mate once a week. So I've got a small cohort of really good friends, and we've discussed this before. I've got acquaintances, and then I've got like my absolute solid inner circle. I'll try and get onto one of those guys once a week. Where I feel like I fall over is, social media again. It's really, it's almost scratching an itch, but it's not solving the problem. It's not so. And I'm sure you've got the same. We've got our mates chats, and we post in these chats, and we have banter, and we sledge each other through these chats, with some reprehensible language, and because that's how guys show love, right?
Yeah.
Through derogatory comments and memes, but it's enough to kind of engage, But then I realize off the back of that, we don't, since the advent of those chat groups, we would catch up a lot more frequently.
That's a good point. We used to have one as a punters club, we used to call it, old mates, and we would have a thing called May Day, but we haven't done it this year. I was planning on a good one tomorrow, which is the Epsom, on Saturday, which is the Epsom Cup at Randwick, and that would have been a good catch up with the mates.
Yeah. But do you find since you've been engaged in those chats that you are not socializing as much as what you used to? Is it scratching the itch for you, or do you find that you're regularly physically catching up with your friends?
I physically do.
You physically do?
Yeah, I do. And I probably call a lot of them
regularly
in a rotation sort of thing.
Yes.
I try to make it when I'm driving or going somewhere.
Yes.
It's not, maybe you'd argue not quality, but
it's quality.
Guys, once they get home, they're into a different focus, right? They're focusing on their children, or they're focusing on their partner, or whatever. So
I actually, that's a good point. I actually try and get my friends now, sounds terrible, but during their commute or during work time for 5-10 minutes, because I know that it's very difficult when you land home to kind of, people haven't seen you and you're kids, and then it's like, well, I'm just ducking out the door to talk to my mate for half an hour.
No.
I'd rather catch someone on their lunch break at work or something like that.
Yeah. Or on your early morning walk at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
They're probably out doing the same thing.
They're out doing the same thing.
It's hard. People are busy, those sort of things, but try to make that.
Physical catch-ups are great. I think at least have a conversation with someone. Move away from the texting. I know sometimes it's difficult in your life to physically catch up with people, but certainly a phone conversation or a FaceTime can really close that gap, and it's a more personal experience than sterile texting.
Yep.
I think. Well, that's just me personally.
You told me one, the scrolling mates won't be the ones that turn up at your funeral. And which is very profound. But I had a mate who was on a group chat with us, and he actually passed away, and he really didn't let the chat, we sort of did let the chat know that things weren't great. He had a leg amputated, and but then passed away very quickly. And he didn't want to bring down the mood of the chat, in all honesty. And he was also a bloke who didn't have a public funeral. And he would probably comment on that chat every day. So we all would have shown up. That's 100%. He was a really nice guy.
It's interesting that some people think that they don't want to impose on other people, their friends or their family, and not realizing that for those people, I think if you're a fairly reasonable person, I really like helping my friends and family where I can. If I can be of value or service to my friends and family, it provides meaning. I think most guys like to, if your mate rings you up and he's in a bind, I get a sense of purpose if I can sort of step in and help those guys out.
You definitely do. You've helped out quite a few people that I know which have been a huge help.
Yeah, I don't know, mate.
You haven't done my hedges, though.
I haven't done yet. I can't. I'm not good on the tools, Kieran. I can send a good email. Yeah, and I'm okay on a spreadsheet, but don't put a hammer in my hands. You're going to be disappointed.
So, call to actions: call one mate this week with no agenda.
Yeah, I think that's important too.
Maybe one non-drinking activity with a mate.
I think
because this isn't always about you. Like, there's the guys who are listening. Some of them may be feeling down, but vice versa. You're not. There'll be other blokes who aren't feeling down. They're also the guys who should be reaching out.
Oh, yes, for sure. It shouldn't just be reaching out because someone's in distress. It should just be, I'm trying to nurture and grow a relationship because, and then and I think you're putting a lot of goodwill in the bank too. You know, you don't want it just to be I'm calling you up because I'm down in the dumps.
No, because Josh Peterson told me to.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely if you can, again, we're not raining on the drinking culture. I've already think I mentioned last week I don't mind a drink at all. But I think it's also important to understand that it's not the only mechanism for social engagement, and that you can do that through over a cup of coffee or, to your point, the Karaji chicken with the sticky rice. Like it doesn't just have to be a night on the cans to
Mate, can
catch up with a
definitely be
mate.
a surf or a bike ride or a
Yeah,
that
physical
also
stuff. A
helps.
gym session, training
Gym
partner,
session,
training partner.
someone to help you lift your
Yes,
110.
yeah, 100%. He's talking about pounds, listeners.
Oh, you're talking kilos.
He's talking pounds. And if you don't have that, if you don't have the privilege of having someone you can talk to, then there's other external groups and agencies and men's sheds and local groups within your area that you might want to consider reaching
Put
out
those on
to.
the lifeline, things like that.
Yeah, 100%. So there's a few there.
Gen Z, mate, make sure friendships higher than social media. So get into that.
Yeah, definitely. Especially I mean, it's tough for our generation, but I could imagine for the millennials and for the Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, whatever they are.
Yep.
They've pretty much been born into this, haven't they? That type of engagement. So
Yeah. They're probably more used to texting than talking.
they would be.
Yeah.
You can see it when they catch up and they've all got their phones out, you know?
Yeah. Mate, should we finish it off?
Yeah.
The anxiety, depression stuff, mental health issue. I'll start at the top with the big one, right? And you raised it last week, and not just last week. You've raised it many times that men are 3 times more likely than women to die by suicide, and you gave a whole heap of reasons for that. That's from Lifeline, from ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics data, and this is worldwide, Western society, I should say. So for those listening around the world, this is a similar thing in terms of women versus men. So we want to talk about that. We've talked about depression, that 1 in 8 Australian men have that experience depression each year, and 1 in 5 will experience an anxiety disorder in their lifetime.
Yeah, 20%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
an anxiety disorder.
So look, the truth of the matter is that most men will be touched by this at some point in their lifetime. That's the cold reality of it, isn't it? When you look at the statistics and break them down, you're more likely than not likely to experience either anxiety or depression in your life.
Yeah, or exposure to it.
Or exposure to it, exactly. Yep. And then you've got 100% chance.
Yep.
You know, and I think there's a sentiment out there, particularly around men in our age group, of just pushing through. And she'll be right, mate. That old Aussie adage. Or, you mentioned the gentleman in your group, your mate, that didn't want to raise anything in a text chat because he didn't want to dampen the mood.
Yeah.
Compare that to how women communicate. Women have a coffee for an hour and it's like going into a lawyer's office.
They know everything about each other by the hour.
They know by the hour. There's 50 questions. It's a full debrief. It's it's a real therapy session for women. They do not muck around with their communication with each other. So I think men can take away some good advice around how women communicate and being a little bit more open. Not Sex in the City open, but just open enough to kind of, to be able to expose yourself a little bit more. What are the the other thing I was thinking about, in is that this whole notion of men avoiding help because of the stigma. And I was just thinking the amount of strength that it takes to express weakness. And that's really it, isn't it? It takes a strong bloke to admit that he's weak
Or has been.
or has
Yeah.
been weak. There's a
Yeah.
strength to that. There's a courage to exposing yourself. So we've just got to change our mindset a little bit about what it means to be, what strong really looks like. And that actually going out there and showing that you're in a bit of a tough spot, which is normal. Everyone's going to go through it. That's life.
But as we sort of touched on before, there's a difference between going through rough spots and depression and clinical depression. So, and I'm not the person to say which one's which or where you're at. Make sure you go to a GP and probably have someone with you that you've confided in or whatever, so that they know to help you follow up with whatever that ends up being, whatever the recommendations are, because you can be recommended pills from your doctor, and it's up to you to take them. There's a lot of people who are on these things and then just stop taking them because they feel better, and then can go back the other way. So be careful.
Be careful. Just on that, in terms of, resources, we've spoken about Beyond Blue, Lifeline, Men's Line, Black Dog Institute, all those kind of things. And
all in the show notes.
All in the show notes, and working, forming a relationship with a qualified health professional that, you can go on this journey with. Thing I would say is, and we talked about this, we've talked about this in other topics about educating yourself. What does that look like? Well, for example, you've got the AHPRA or APRA, which is Registered Australian Health Professionals, Health Practitioner, I should say, Regulation Agency. Why that's important is that you can go on there if you've got someone in mind or you've been referred a particular person or therapist or psychologist, you can go in there and you can look at their credentials.
That's very important.
That's it. But you can look at their credentials. You can look at, and Kieran, just quietly, there's psychologists out there, health professionals that are working with conditions.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for listeners, if you do have someone in mind or you've been referred to someone, do your own due diligence, check out their qualifications, check out if there's any underlying conditions against their name. It's like any service provider, Kieran.
Right.
There's good and
so
bad.
It's the same way you'd select an accountant or a solicitor, whatever. They have a marks against their name or things that they're on probation.
Exactly. And what those conditions are.
So the GP may recommend you because they haven't really looked at this thing.
Or the thing is, the GP may recommend you because they have got a personal relationship with the person.
Yeah. So
right, and it's a quid pro quo.
Then check it.
Exactly.
Check
so
the
just
AHPRA registered.
Yes, and that's important to really do your own research on those things. Yeah, and same with the GPs as well. They just lob up to a GP. Like, do a bit of research, check them out. Like, get some reviews, go on to the websites, Google it, whatever. Just get some semblance of information, and you'll generally, if you go to a few reputable resources, you'll get a sort of a better feeling about whether or not this is the right person for you.
Yeah.
It takes 5-10 minutes of just looking at it. Any other calls to action, mate?
Well, that's booking the GP. That's a Lifeline's number. Tell your trusted mate that you're battling. Go for a run, do some exercise, get into it, go for a swim.
I can't overemphasize the importance of exercise.
Yeah.
Everything I look at, Kieran, it just keeps coming up. Mental health, physical health, any sort of ailments, go out there and do some exercise.
It's so good for you. And being in the sun, get your vitamin D.
Get some vitamin D, just not try peak sunlight. Don't fry yourself.
A little bit of a sauna. You feel pretty clean after that.
if you've got a sauna nearby, then absolutely that. Yeah, at your local gym, all those types of things.
Anyway,
Swimming.
you have done well. We've done the full reset.
We've done the full reset. Hope our listeners can look at some of those call to actions and just do one thing. Just do one thing, or
Go back and listen.
go
to
back
one
and
or
listen.
whatever.
Have a look at the show notes. I'll try and put in some supplementary material that can give you some good places to look to make it a bit easier on places to go without having to go through the whole podcast. But yeah, that finishes up our health trilogy. And next week we're going to change the tempo a bit.
Good.
We've had a few serious episodes, Kieran.
Yeah.
And I think our listeners, I know I'm exhausted.
So am I. I'm going for a lie down.
I'm going to go for a nap, have a protein bar or something. But I thought next week we could go into blokey myths.
Okay.
We can kind of have a look at some of those perpetuating myths across all different areas of our life that impacts men, and hopefully we can have a bit of a laugh and debunk some of the stuff and have a giggle along the way. So that's the intent of next week.
Is one of the myths the bald guy's a solar powered sex machine or what?
No, that's Short Kings you're thinking of, Kieran. Short Kings. Have you heard of the Short King?
I've heard of Short Kings, yeah.
You know, so Short King is like a guy that's 5, I think it's 5'8" or less.
Right.
And, you know, he's supposed to be like a high value man, but he's just a little bit shorter. Like and you're about 6 foot, aren't you? I'm about 5'10".
Okay.
I'm about 5'10". But so I'm not very tall at all, but I'm not a short king, but that's what my son likes to call me.
Yeah, they're good bloke.
King. So yeah, we're going to keep it light, and then
Yep.
we'll probably then get back on track and start looking at fatherhood and some other cool areas.
Great.
Take it from there.
Excellent, mate.
Okay, mate. Thank you again for another great week.
Good luck to Lenny's
sorry.
Melbourne team.
Oh, the Storm?
Storm?
Yes. We'll be cheering for the Storm this weekend. I've also got my son's birthday this weekend, which would be fun. And we've got the King's birthday long weekend. So, yes, it should be a nice time to rest, recover, and catch up with friends and family.
Excellent.
All those things we've been talking about today.
Go do it, everyone. Have a great long weekend in New South Wales and enjoy.
Enjoy, and I'll catch you next week, mate.
Okay. See
Have
you,
a
buddy.
great one. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
This episode is general information only. Full disclaimers in the notes.